So, welcome to another episode of Tech Career Advisor. With me today, I have a special guest, a friend, someone I call a brother, and someone who's been a mentor to me for a long time. Adam Schutska is someone who started his career in his teenage years, became a CTO of a company in Connecticut in his early 20s, and is not only a professional and an expert when it comes to technology, but also in sales. He's consulted with some of the largest companies in the world, and I'm honored to have him as our first guest. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you, Horatio. I'm honored to be here.
So why don't you walk us a little bit through your journey in IT? What made you want to pursue a career in IT?
Sure. I was bitten by the technology bug pretty early on. I can remember, and I'm dating myself a little bit here. Not that the Grays don't do that, but I can remember in the late '70s. One of my cousins had acquired this marvelous tool called the VIC-20. It's made by Commodore at the time. I think it had 20K worth of RAM in it. And the interesting thing to me was it was an opportunity to engage and play games on it and create music. And I had pretty quickly graduated to a Commodore 64. And in my early years, I actually taught myself how to program in fairly standard languages like BASIC, but also machine language programming. And I found it really kind of helped accelerate my education. So by the time I got to algebra and calculus, a lot of this stuff was kind of secondhand to me. I'd already kind of learned it self-taught, and just always had the technology bug. And my late teens, after I graduated from high school, I found out that being involved in technology was incredibly lucrative. It was a great opportunity to earn some really fantastic money, opportunities to go and travel and be part of a larger corporate world, and fascinated me, and I've never looked back.
Awesome. It's funny you talked about games. When I was in high school, I actually thought I wanted to be a doctor, and didn't really work out for me. But my introduction to computers was through video games. On floppy on 5 1/4. Was it five and
Oh
a
yeah,
quarter?
yep, 5 1/4 inch floppy.
Yeah,
Yep.
there was this game called Digger that you dug in the dirt and go pick things up, and things are chasing you. So it was video games first, and then also liking to take things apart, take apart a radio or a fan, trying to figure out. It would never work after I put it back together, but but it was a curiosity, on how things worked, and that's what led me into really wanting to learn more about computers.
It's one of the
Um,
reasons I specifically got into programming on that Commodore was,
yeah,
I came from a pretty meager background, and my family couldn't afford a floppy disk drive for the Commodore 64. I had a tape drive, and all the best games came on floppy. And so I made a decision that I was just going to teach myself to make my own games, and that's what really kind of got me into programming at an early age. The drive to keep myself entertained.
what are some of the challenges you faced along the way as you've developed your career when you moving through from that curious person to possibly starting with hardware and so forth, and to get to the leadership stage? What did you have to overcome?
The technology, to a certain degree, was easy. The technology is the technology. It's a lot like mathematics. It's either generally right or wrong. It either works or it doesn't work. There's certain nuance to it, and a certain artistry that I think some of the best solution architects and engineers bring to the table. But a couple things that I really struggled with were some challenges. One was time management. To this day, there just never seems to be enough time in the day, and really making sure that I set aside appropriate time for myself from a personal perspective, from a physical perspective. Keeping yourself healthy is really critical. From an emotional support perspective and mental clarity perspective, those are all very important things. So balancing all that and the time management aspect, I think, is really critical and was a challenge for me, certainly. As my career developed, in this crazy corporate world, sometimes politics and bureaucracy can be a very difficult thing to swallow. Again, you look at technology, and you look at it kind of, and this works, and it works well, and this is the right thing to do. And sometimes when you get into corporate America, you start to discover that politics and bureaucracy sometimes can trump, the right thing to do from a technical perspective. So really, kind of understanding how best to navigate, to be mindful, and that kind of really leads to the third challenge, which are people. Biggest challenge and also greatest reward in my career. Really understanding people, being empathetic to them, understanding their position in view. A lot of politics are created, obviously, from people, and yeah, I think being empathetic, it really gives you a position of power when you look at situations. The ability to look at any situation from someone else's viewpoint really can change the outcome. How your diplomacy comes across, or how your politics potentially come across. Difficult things to swallow. I tend to be a little bit stubborn, as you might know, and a little bit bullheaded in a lot of ways. But those were some of the challenges that I feel that I had to overcome in my career.
Yep. And as you were part of my career journey as well in the early 2000s, and I remember trial by fire. A lot of stuff I learned was, hey, why don't you go build this, and just trying to figure out how to do it. And I assume you had to go through the same thing. Um,
Absolutely. When we look at, what are the technical skills and what are the kind of emotional intelligence skills required, you have to be a little bit fearless. One of the items that I know you've talked about in previous podcasts were about, building a lab.
mhm,
I can't stress that enough for people that are into technology. Excuse me. People that are into technology at this stage, you have to have a sandbox. You've got to have a place to be able to go and play and try things and break things. Some of the most important lessons that I learned purely from a technical perspective in that kind of engineering space, a lot of it was what not to do. It wasn't so much knowing what to do; it's knowing what not to do. I have found that a couple of basic items, reading the instructions and educating yourself on what you're doing before you hop into it, quite critical. Being mindful about doing things that can't be quickly undone.
yep.
So being careful. And again, if you're going to make mistakes, everybody makes them. That's how you learn. Do it in a lab. Do it in a safe environment where if you blow something up, all you've done is created some extra work for yourself to go rebuild the lab versus taking down a production environment, which unfortunately happens from time to time.
You know how I learned not to delete anything from the registry, like deleting something from the
Deleting stuff
registry.
from the registry. Of course, of course.
And I never forgot that lesson. Like we're not doing that again. So yeah, it's absolutely. And what I fear for the people who are entering the space now, I'm seeing a lot of people online. We have a society that gravitates, that it's kind of like a follow the crowd, follow the movement situation. So everyone wants to go into cybersecurity, and IT is so huge. There's so many things you could do. Some of it is not as exciting, like project management, but you always need project managers. You always need help desk people. And one of the things that I worry about is that people are selling this idea that I can make you an expert in 30 days. And I don't think you can be an expert at anything in not even a year. And I think it's just dangerous. It's just one of the reasons why I started this. I want to give people real information. They can find A plus network plus material on YouTube for free. So they don't need that from me, but I want to give them real world things that, hey, this is, if you want to start and thrive, these are the things you need to understand and be willing to do. Even in the Bible, Jesus said, if you want to follow me, you must count the cost. you know, you need to understand there's a cost, there's a price to be paid, and you got to be willing to pay it, and come on and follow a roadmap. And if you don't know what the roadmap is, talk to someone who has done it and ask them, hey, Adam, how did you do it? And use that as a starting point. So go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say one of my favorite authors is a guy named Malcolm Gladwell.
Yep.
Some of your viewers may be familiar with him. If
Mhm.
not, I would highly recommend they read his book Outliers. It's really a seminal
Yeah.
work. Really will change the way you kind of think about the world. One of the conclusions that he comes to in a portion of the book is that the people that have been really, really successful, and he talks about the Beatles as an example. the Beatles, they had done a tremendous amount of work playing together in a variety of different clubs, specifically in Germany. They had amassed all these hours of expertise. And he talks about several different resources over the years. Paul Allen and Bill Gates when they started Microsoft.
Mhm.
As I mentioned, the Beatles. But what he came to a conclusion of is in order to be really competent in something, you need about 10,000 hours. And that seems to be the number 10,000 hours of actually doing something, and you're going to be fairly competent at it.
Yep.
So I think one bit of advice I would absolutely give is, be kind to yourselves as you start your journey. It's a long road, and it is a journey. It's not a race.
Yep.
And highly, highly caution people to buy into the cert machines that are out there, and this concept that, hey, I'm going to go study cybersecurity for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and
Mhm.
then I'm going to be an expert at the end of it. It's just not. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
Cybersecurity is an advanced topic. There's so many different aspects, even now within cybersecurity. We have some experts that I work with that are just absolutely, these people are blow my mind every time I have an opportunity to engage with them. But people that are specialized just in penetration
Yep.
testing, right, and running penetration tests, it's a lot different than a compliance
Mm.
resource, right?
Yep.
And people that are experts in compliance, those are both under the cybersecurity umbrella.
Mhm.
Two vastly different type of engagements that require different levels of expertise,
Yep.
different levels of background.
Mhm.
Be mindful that this is a journey. Start with the basics. If I'll use your cybersecurity as an example. If that's an area that you want to go into and you're fascinated by it, start with understanding the most basics of, like, say, a Network Plus certification. So, like CompTIA Network Plus, that's going to start to give you foundations. If you don't understand TCP/IP at a truly deep fundamental level where you understand how subnetting is actually happening at a bit by bit perspective, you're never going to be worth your salt from a cybersecurity perspective.
Absolutely. And I think you just covered one of my other questions. We just covered that in that piece. So how do you stay up to date with technology trends and developments that are happening in the IT industry?
Yeah, so your circle of resources, I think, is really critical, and your personal network. Everybody, I think, is aware of, or if you're not, you should be aware of tools like LinkedIn, as an example, where you can go out there and connect with people that are in the industry. But above and beyond what's online, Facebook groups or Reddits or LinkedIn, go and find people and develop friendships and relationships. One of my closest friends, a guy that a guy named Wes Bosco, I worked with for a number of years.
Absolutely.
Wes is a dweeb like I am when it comes to technology, and we will sometimes hop on a call and we'll sit down for 45 minutes, or when we have the opportunity to get to face, and we'll sit and talk technology for 45 minutes. Did you see this? And sometimes it's the most esoteric, weird stuff, everything from quantum computing and what's happening in that particular space to new items for the desktop. But we're talking technology, and you'll get exposed to stuff that you generally wouldn't necessarily stumble upon yourself. The more
Yep.
people you talk to, the deeper those relationships and contacts that you have, the more experience you're going to have of what other people are seeing out there in the world. So
Yep.
definitely your circle of friends and the networks that you create are absolutely critical in staying up to date. There's a variety of different sources too. There's no shortage of groups that you can join. Basically, emails that you can sign up for that will tell you, here's expanding technology, here's the newest technology. I go pretty wide with tech, so there is a website that I like to partake in. It's called Phizorg, PHYSORG.com. And it talks about technology from the IT space and business application all the way up to quantum theory and what's happening with Starlink and where battery technologies are going. And I tend to gorge on that. So that's something that I'll spend 15-20 minutes a day reviewing. So I think have multiple sources to get inspiration from, and then follow that inspiration to really deep dive into the technology you think's relevant.
Yep. Absolutely. And I'm gonna have to check out that resource, Fizorg. Sounds very interesting.
It's fantastic. It's a little, it's a little dorky. Not gonna lie, it gets
That's
pretty deep in some of this stuff.
fine. So and on that same in that same vein, what do you feel like is some of the emerging technologies that will have the most significant impact in the IT landscape in the near term?
Yeah, so I've got two immediate answers that pop to mind. The simplest one, and this won't come as a shock to anybody who's even looked into technology, artificial intelligence, AI. The impact of AI and the acceleration and adoption of AI across a plethora of different technology stacks, it's astounding. I've been doing this, 30 years now, and I've seen rapid adoption of technology before. I've seen, phones being going from, somebody carrying a bag phone to, having a flip phone to having, iPhone and the proliferation of those type of devices where everybody carries one. Even my parents, who are probably the least technical people on the planet, they carry phones and use them all the time. But what I'm seeing with AI right now is vastly different.
Yep.
The technology is significantly advanced. The capabilities are significantly advanced. The adoption rate is something that I just have really not seen before. I mean, we are seeing impacts in days
Yep.
of application of AI to particular verticals, and that's both good and also negative in some cases. So,
Yep.
yeah, as an example, I mean, we're seeing in the cybersecurity realm, the organization that I work for right now, we'll pitch there, Blue Mantis,
Yep.
look us up online. But
Yep.
we're cybersecurity experts. That's really kind of where we're focused
Yep.
and where we spend quite a bit of our time.
Mhm.
The application of AI by bad actors to conduct cybersecurity breaches and to to do ransomware, to hold organizations hostage, it's astounding.
Yep.
We are seeing stuff almost on an hourly basis that's being developed and released, and it is absolutely amazing to me.
Yep.
So in the near term, AI, where that's going, Microsoft Copilot, highly would recommend that if you're not familiar with it, to take a real hard look at Copilot, because I think that there's some significant differentiation, especially in the business use cases.
I've been
Um,
using Designer. I've been using their Designer, and they so a lot of the stuff I'm putting online, I,
sure.
I'm starting to use AI like Google. So even when I'm preparing, I want a script for something. I'll just say, hey, I'm gonna do a speech. I need a script on this topic. And how I'm using it is not to give me all the answers, but to give me a framework. It's like I don't want to have to create the framework out of my brain. I have the data, but I need you to give me, just give me some outlines and I'll fill the rest in. So it's almost like an assistant. It's like an executive assistant that I have on my phone or on my computer. And even creating images, I don't want to use copyrighted images. So I said, hey, I need an image of a young man who's an IT professional who's studying for an exam. Pops out an image. I don't have to take a picture. So yeah, it's even as simple as that is. It's amazing.
Yeah, we're seeing multitude of use cases there. Like I said, both good and bad.
Yep.
And then, another technology I'm particularly kind of geeked out about is quantum computing. I've been following that for a very long time. There are absolutely fantastic resources out there, and from a developmental perspective, if you, I would highly recommend any of your listeners or people who follow the podcast look at Michio Kaku's Quantum Supremacy. It was released, I think, about a year ago. Incredibly relevant about where that technology is headed. And my personal opinion, between AI and quantum computing, I think when you see that marriage and that convergence point come into focus, we're going to see stuff that we haven't really dreamed about, and that will truly be indistinguishable from magic. I'm really excited about where that's headed.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of really good applications there. I'm what I'd like to see, and even though Elon Musk scares me with the what's the new technology called? Neuralink. It scares
Neuralink. Yep.
me. But if you could use that to make someone walk again or make someone see again, but it's this thin line between, using good and evil. So the same, just like Kali Linux can be used by an ethical hacker, it can also be used by a cyber criminal. And so how do we, create these technologies that can have enormous good, but also ensure it doesn't get into the wrong hands. It's very challenging.
So even on the AI side of technology, most of the clients that we work with are in the commercial or enterprise space. Many of them have either completed what I would consider to be first round, maybe even second round adoptions of AI ethical use policies. And I've been involved in some really interesting conversations, as an example, in healthcare, and where we look at AI usage, and it basically is like, is the healthcare organization is publicly traded, right, on the stock market. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to do what? To increase the value of that stock, right? That is effectively something that they are chartered to do. It's a fiduciary responsibility. Part of the issue starts to stem when you say, okay, well, hey, we're going to start to apply AI to make better decisions about how we treat patients. And it's like, okay, well, that's fair. Well, there's this intersection point with like insurance as an example. Is it an ethical use case to say, hey, these folks in this assay that we've got, we probably don't want to insure them,
Yep.
and they may not be insurable because of a variety of different reasons.
Yep.
And you have to sit back and say, geez, does that potentially move stock price? Sure.
Mm.
Yeah, it does. Is that ethical?
Mhm.
Probably not.
Yep.
And I think that organizations right now as this technology is advancing so quickly, they're coming back saying, hey, we need to develop a standard of how we're going to engage from AI, an AI ethics standard for our company, and define that. And it's going to be something that's going to need to be continually reviewed. So when people
Yep.
start thinking about getting into technology, there's that aspect, which really has a deep psychological component to it. There's a moralistic and ethical component to it, and it clearly involved in technology, but way outside of the kind of the bits and
Mhm.
and the electrical impulses that make that stuff work.
Yep. So back to these people that are the folks that are aspiring to become professionals, like yourself. What would you say are some of the essential skills or skill sets, whether technical or soft skills, that someone that's starting out in their career, what are some of those skills you think they should acquire? And what advice do you have for them as far as acquiring those skills?
Sure. So answer this in a couple of different ways. One, from a technical perspective, um, getting baseline knowledge about general operations. So I had mentioned before, CompTIA has that Network Plus certification. I really feel that that is probably the baseline certification that everybody needs to have familiarity with. There's also an A plus certification, which really kind of focuses on operating systems and the integration at a operating system level and kind of the baseline hardware.
Yep.
Important too, but I almost feel that Network Plus has surpassed that as
Yep.
the true baseline. Everything communicates, right? Everything that we do today that touches the internet or touches other devices on a corporate network, it's going to communicate on the network. It's going to be using technology such as wireless. It's going to use technology such as Ethernet, whether that's via fiber or whether it's through twisted pair. Those technologies are in play right now, and it's really important to understand those core baseline technologies. I mentioned it before. Again, can't stress it enough, but something like TCP/IP, you need to know that protocol, IP version 4 inside and out. It's really critical. It's going to make your troubleshooting better, going to make your understanding of the communications better. It's going to enable you to look for more advanced engagements. When you start talking about like QoS, how do you implement quality of service, or some more advanced networking topics, it all starts with those foundational understandings. And that's on the the technical side. On the non-technical side, there's a lot of soft skills. Throughout my career, I've had, and I know you know a lot of the people, so I won't mention any of them by name. But we've
Yep.
worked with some people that were absolutely brilliant
Yep.
technical resources, right? I mean, just absolutely, pioneers and just giants in their technical area, subject matter experts to the highest degree. Sometimes their soft skills were a little wanting, a little lacking, and so I would
Yep.
recommend that developing good social skills are really critical to a long-term career.
Yep.
You can be the smartest, you can be the smartest guy or gal in the room, but if you can't communicate effectively to people, or you come across as a know-it-all or brash or or unwilling to be reasonable, that could really pump the brakes pretty quickly
Yep.
and stop your progression pretty quickly. In the corporate world.
Absolutely. I was actually thinking today. So here's so here's how my brain works. I will if I'm really interested in a topic, I could be in the grocery aisle and my brain is just running scenarios. So I'm literally thinking about something I want to say in another video. It came to me today that probably 70%, maybe even more than 70%, maybe 80% of IT is actually communication. It's actually talking to people. I mean, how often are you installing network switches and changing IPs and all this other stuff? You do them once in a while, but you're speaking with people every single day. You're communicating with end users, with business people, people with varying degrees of knowledge when it comes to technology, different backgrounds, and you have to be like Switzerland. You have to be able to be calm and be able to communicate with people from all walks of life. And I found, and that's what has helped me is really understanding how to bring people down, especially when they're upset over something, and use empathy and try to understand, okay, they're upset because this thing doesn't work. And even though it's not my fault, I understand why they're venting. I think some of those things that, especially folks starting in a career, they don't understand. It's not just technical. It's not just knowing all the cool stuff, and those things are important as far as competence, but you also need social competence. And I'm hoping that this channel, this movement that we're creating is going to be able to provide, just really good value to people who are starting out in IT and even in outside of IT. Because like I said, I'm not sure where this is going to go, but my crazy idea, and I just picked this number out of a hat. If I could help 100,000 people in the next 5 years, that would be awesome. And I wanted it to be a huge goal. I didn't want it to be too easy. But I also can visualize 100,000. I can't visualize a million people, but 100,000, I'm like, that's not too bad. I mean, America has 300 million, you know, and the world's a big place, but I really, really want to do that directly and indirectly by, talking to people like you and just giving information out and helping people figure out a game plan for themselves because everyone's gonna have a different game plan, but a lot of the things are the same. Right? There's nothing new under the sun. You talked about A plus and Network plus. That's how I started. When I was in college, I after high school I went to work full time, and I grew up in Jamaica, as you know, went to work full time, and then I came to the U.S. and went to college, and I felt like I was behind and I got a job in the on the help desk, and the other guys that were there, I just tried to soak everything up from them, and they were talking about certifications, and I was like, oh, A plus, that makes sense. Started to look into A plus, then I did the Network plus, then I came to work with you in Connecticut and did a lot of hardware, and I still think that path is important. It's foundational. It's like building your house on the solid rock versus the shifting sand, you know? Because the A plus, the Network plus gave me the fundamentals. Like you talked about QoS. If you don't understand VLANs, you're not going to understand QoS. You're not going to understand how you can separate the traffic and put different categories and so forth. So yeah, it's absolutely essential. Um,
Another area that I think is really important
yeah.
foundationally is
Mhm.
really understanding business drivers.
Yeah.
You don't have to have your MBA in business administration, but really understanding the core business. At the end of the day, most organizations, they're not technology companies.
Yes.
They may be from an ancillary perspective, but you think about Uber, right? You think about how Uber developed that application and how they do continuous improvement, continuous development of the app. I mean, you hop on your phone, you basically pick that app up and run it, and it's going to locate you. It's going to find you a driver, and it's going to get you to your destination. And that's done. It's wonderful. It's
Yep.
magical the way it works. That's not their primary job to be technologist, right? Their primary job is to get you from point A to point B, right? To offer
Yep.
that service and to make money doing it. So I think it's really important to understand the business drivers because a lot of times in IT specifically, I have had the opportunity to work with so many great people, but sometimes they get siloed in IT and they're like, wait, yeah, but this is the technology that we need. And it's like, yeah, possibly, but does that help the business achieve its business goals?
Yeah.
And if you
Yep.
don't understand what those are, or you don't understand something like what does EBITDA mean,
Yep.
and how does that affect the business and why is that important for us? Or you don't understand operational expenditures versus capital expenditures. You don't understand that difference. It makes it harder sometimes to maybe swallow decisions that come down your way, or
Yep.
also architect the right type of technology for the company.
Absolutely. And I really started to appreciate that when I got into leadership. It's like, this technology A is really the best solution, but our budget doesn't support it. So we're gonna have to go with technology B. It is what it is, you know. And when you are, I think when you start to be responsible, when you are responsible for the operational side of it, you start to see it differently. When you're just a techie, you don't see it as much. But I do think the techie, the engineer, the system admin should learn those things and start to understand it. And I think it's a disconnect within organizations. Because if they understand, then we'll get more buy-in, and maybe we'll come up with a compromise faster. Where well, we can't go with A, but what can we meet in the middle to where we get the benefits of A, but at a lower price, or we get the benefits of A without breaking the legacy equipment that can't move because there's no support for it, you know?
100%. One thing that I've seen a lot of out there, especially with people that are, maybe newer to technology, or really go down the technology rabbit hole deep, is, you know, uh, the best solution is not always the best solution. And what I mean by that is I've seen organizations come out and implement things like contact centers. And I had one company in particular that we did a lot of consulting around, and their contact center had 17 different vendors and publishers involved in the contact center solution.
Yep.
Did they choose the absolute best in each of their respective areas for that contact center? Yes. I wouldn't argue that they chose the best parts, kind of like, they had the best parts of the Ferrari engine and the best, transmission from a Porsche, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way down the line. They did that. But in the process of doing that, they created this kind of monstrosity that was extremely difficult to manage from an operational perspective. When you
Yep.
start thinking about operational costs back to the business, you think about the workload now on resources that are ultimately responsible for that contact center, where they're sitting back going, geez, we've got an issue here and we have to escalate. Well, we think it might be, Cisco call center, or it might be this particular vendor that provides a widget
Yep.
that's embedded in it, or it might be an interconnect that's provided by this other vendor.
Yep.
And you have to look at what's the best solution for your organization that's not only financially viable, but also operationally supportable. And I
Yep.
think that, there's a level of kind of a intelligence that comes along with that. Maturity is probably a better word. Maturity and understanding that, yeah, hey, I could go out and pick the absolute best parts and build something that is the absolute best performing, most technically sound. But this solution where now I'm only calling one vendor, yeah,
Yep.
I might lose a little bit of performance here or there. I might lose a little bit of availability here or there, but it's much, much more supportable, and it's the right solution for the business.
Oh, absolutely. I can't agree. Can't agree enough. So let me ask you this. We shift gears a little bit. So I'm sure this has happened to you before. Burnout. I I remember I called you one day and I said, man, my face is numb. I remember I had a headache for a week, and you're like, that is stress. And I didn't realize. I thought I knew what stress was, but how do how can people avoid burnout? What are some work life balance, healthy healthy work style tips that you can give, especially the young up and coming professionals?
Sure. It's a balancing act. And when I mean it's a balancing act, there's no set way, in my opinion, to do it right. And I'll give you a couple of examples about this. If you're 22 years old and you're coming out the gate, 12-hour days, 14-hour days, do them. Travel. You got to travel extensively to get that experience, to do those installations, put the time and effort in. As you get older and your life matures and your life gets more, more profound in a lot of ways, people, in my experience, tend to they find partners in life. They have children, and raise families. Your priorities are going to shift, and you have to be really mindful of that. There is a balance for me at my age, and the big 50 coming up here. At my age, it's about making time for myself in the morning to get up and to do a pretty comprehensive workout and spend time in the sauna and spend time cold plunging. Something that's really important to me, helps relax me and keep me focused for the day. So I make sure that I've got time to do that. The process of making sure that I've got time to do that, I also take into account that, hey, maybe I don't need to be out the night before, having drinks and stuff with people till 11 o'clock at night. Maybe I need to be in bed a little bit earlier. I got to get good sleep in order to be my most effective. And that's the spot that I'm at right now. Would I recommend a 22-year-old to, only work, 7 hours a day? Make sure you take that hour for lunch and be, mindful of, your emotional well-being. No, grind it out. You're young, do it while you can. Attack, with the most ardent fervor that you can muster, and go make a mark in the world. Educate yourself. Don't be afraid to take chances, but do look for the balance. And to your point, to do something for a day, to do something for a week, a month, a year. I spent a couple of years early in my career traveling around the world, doing implementations for a company that we did quite a bit of business with when I was in my early time at PCS. And was it grindy? 100%. Did a lot of it suck? 100%.
Yep.
And would I do it again at this age? Absolutely not. Am
No.
I glad I did it? 100%.
Yep.
Because I learned a lot from that, and learned a lot of to do and a lot to what not to do. So it is a balancing act, but make sure you do make some time for yourself to decouple a little bit and evaluate. I've had weeks where I've put in 80, 90 hours, no exaggeration, at points in my career, and I've sat back at the end of the week and I've been like just glazed over and kind of brain dead. Like, wow, this is brutal. But I've also had weeks where I put in 80, 90 hours in a week and said, wow, man, I killed it this week. I'm really proud of what I did. I'm proud of what I accomplished. And that counts for something also.
Oh, absolutely. The other thing I would say is to especially young people is don't chase the money, chase the opportunity, because sometimes the money is not necessarily the best opportunity. You may be pigeonholed in a situation where all you do is punch numbers and they're paying you a lot of money, but you're bored to death. Versus, all right, maybe I'll get a little bit less here, but I'm exposed to a ton of different things. I'm meeting people, I'm traveling. And so, and it's an individual thing as well. Depends on what your goals are. It's like, figure out what's best for you. What are you trying to accomplish in the next couple of years? But I do agree. When you're in your 20s, though, yes, I could stay up late. I could stay up till 2 o'clock. A lot of certifications that I passed in the early days, I could stay up all night till 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, if I stay up past 11 the next day, I need like 2 days to get back. And so, yeah, I agree. Grind early, put in the work early, and then in the later years, you're going to benefit from all that stuff. So, absolutely gold. So we are coming up on time. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience, knowing that the target audience is aspiring and profession IT professionals and people who might be in their early years of their career. Any last word?
Yeah, I would leave with this. This is your life, right? This is something you're making a conscientious decision to do. Make sure you're enjoying it, for God's sakes. You're going to spend more hours engaging with people in your career and your professional engagements. A lot of times, than you will people that are important in your personal lives. I think about how often during my really busy years that I spend with parents and family. Not as much. I probably saw my parents every few weeks or whatnot versus people that I worked with every day and, put in 10, 12, 14-hour days sometimes, elbow to elbow with. You're going to devote thousands and thousands and thousands of hours over decades of your life to this. Don't be miserable. It's you get, as far as we know, this is the only life we get. This is our opportunity, and make sure you enjoy it.
Yeah. Like the great Snoopy once said, you only die once, but you have to live every day. You know? So no, absolutely, Adam. I appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me. And I have great aspirations for Tech Career Advisor, and I hope we can be of value to the people out there.
Yeah, appreciate you reaching out and the opportunity to hop on the podcast with you here. Wish you the best of luck rolling forward, and anything I can do to help you, please reach out.
All right, man, I appreciate it.
If you found today's video useful, please don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And remember, sharing is caring, so share with your friends. Thank you.